How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. Welcome across the United States. Delighted to have you with me. The phone number, if you would like to be on the program, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to call in, you're more than welcome to. Y'all, we need to have a little talk. We got some folks who need some prayer. One of the wild things in history is how often people hire insane individuals because they think they're geniuses, and only later do they realize, nope, just insane. These crazy ideas they have, these crazy things are actually not signs of genius, but signs of deep mental unwellness. Like the old story about the person who hired the genius turned out not to be a genius. He's just a serial killer. We're seeing this on display in social media. Like, for example, so Taylor Lawrence. You probably don't know who Taylor Lawrence is because you're not as online as I am, and you can thank me for doing it so you don't have to. She was a technology reporter for the New York Times and then for the Washington Post, and her whole beat was trends on the internet. And it was very clear to many people that she was an unwell person, a malcontent, who oftentimes used her position to bully people. She put this on social media yesterday. Now, again, yesterday, not 2020, not 2021, but December 2nd, 2024, Taylor Lawrence tweeted this, and I quote, "Planning a COVID-safe book launch took months and thousands of my own dollars, ensuring testing, outdoor space, far UV lights, and a litany of other precautions. Meanwhile, you dumb blankety blanks are out raw dogging the air and spewing your disease-laden breath all over your elderly neighbors. We are not the same." Raw dogging the air is going to be the line of the century. This is a deeply mentally unstable woman in 2024. Now, she says she's medically vulnerable, but you know what? She was medically vulnerable before COVID. And yet she wasn't doing all this stuff. But now she gets to do it and make herself feel virtuous against the rest of us. Calls us dumb F words, raw dogging the air and spewing your disease-laden breath all over your elderly neighbors. The only thing that's changed pre-COVID and post-COVID is that people like Taylor Lawrence now have an excuse to live out their mental fractured self and claim some virtuousness in doing so. It is a wild and insane thing. But it's not just her. The benefit of social media, there are many bad things about social media. If you haven't heard my story, just let me explain social media to those of you who are new to the program this way. You gotta hang on a second. Let me pull it up because it's important that I get it right. This is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5. They went across the lake to the region of Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure heart came from the tombs to meet him, a possessed man. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Demons are immortal beings. So what did they do when the pigs died? They started Twitter and Facebook and social media. That's what they did. That explains social media. Better than any other theory you could posit, that explains social media. The legion of demons, after the pigs died, jumped forward into the 21st century and said, "Hey, let's do something. We'll call it Twitter. Change the name to X, and the whole world will be able to see the mentally deranged, the possessed, the mentally ill, the wokes, the weirdos, all in one place." And we have Taylor Lawrence, who's upset with the rest of us, raw dogging the air and breathing our germs on the elderly, but she is virtuous. But it's not just her. We have woke educators across America now having a moment because Donald Trump won the election. I want to play you a couple of TikToks. This is a music teacher.
I don't want to hear one single word from a single Republican, Trump-loving parent when the public school system stops working for their kid.
And on it goes. She talks about how if you've got a kid with learning disabilities, I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know it. I don't want you to complain when your school shuts down. Because why? Because you voted for Donald Trump. She's that upset about it. She's a public school teacher who, by the way, she's a music teacher. And she's in this massive tirade about Donald Trump supporting parents. And how dare they criticize any teacher or criticize the public school system, or because, Title I funding might get dropped. It's wild to me that this woman feels that entitled to comment and lecture parents that she actually knows what's best for their children, that she actually knows what's best for the kids.
I don't want to hear one single word from a single Republican, Trump-loving parent when the public school system stops working for their kid. I don't want to hear one word from any Republican parents that live in rural areas when their school gets shut down and consolidated with another school 20 miles away because theirs doesn't have enough Title I funding to operate anymore. I don't want to hear a single word from any parent of a special needs child that voted for Donald Trump when their kid stops receiving services and supports at school. You no longer get to play the victim anymore. We will do everything that we possibly can to make sure your child still receives a free and appropriate public school education as it is required by law, but you do not get any extra support or sympathy. I'm going to need y'all to suffer in silence and figure it out on your own. When Republican parents finally realize how much their public school system has atrophied because of neglect due to Republicans, and when they finally come to the realization that they're going to have to pull their kid out of public school, quit their job, and homeschool their kid, or even more hilarious, when they finally decide that no matter how many vouchers Donald Trump promises to give them, they're never going to afford private school, I don't want to hear one single complaint out of any one of those parents that voted for Donald Trump.
This woman needs to be fired. The arrogance. By the way, public school systems, they were getting way more money now than they were just 20 years ago, and they're doing worse. They're producing less educated students who are scoring worse in reading, writing, math. They're failing non-white kids overwhelmingly. This privileged white music teacher gets to lecture parents for voting in their own interest that is not this teacher's interest, and now the parents are the bad guy. This is a public school teacher who wants you to know if you vote for Donald Trump, screw you and your family. How can you send your kids into this woman's class knowing this is a review? But it's not just her. Here's another one. Listen to this one, who's very upset.
So I just thought of something. Now that Trump has been reelected, what are we black educators going to do?
What are we black educators going to do? Now, she went on a profanity-laced tirade from there. What are we black educators going to do? It wasn't fun before, and now it's not fun, and it's not funny either, she goes on to say. What are we going to do? You know what you're going to do? You're going to do your job. You're going to do your job, and you're going to treat parents and kids equally. You're going to be gracious to them all because you signed up for it. You don't like it, get out of teaching. The fact that these people are emboldened to go on social media and say these things and then think, well, they can't do anything to me. I got tenure. I am allowed. I got a union backing me. You can't toss me. How can any parent trust that their child is going to get a good education when what we're actually seeing is the mental breakdown of a whole lot of people? These people are not mentally well. These people are breaking. And why are they breaking? Because they lost an election. That's it. They lost an election. It's not like the world has collapsed, except for them it has, because they lost an election. They have made politics their idol. And God Almighty has smashed their idol, and they are struggling to cope, and they're taking it out. We have reached the blame segment of grief, the full rage. You know, by the time the inauguration gets here, these people are going to have turned violent. But I want to go back to the white music teacher. She doesn't want to hear from, she wouldn't have any complaints from a parent of a special needs child. I bet she supports aborting those kids. You don't want to hear complaints from parents of a special needs child because you disagree with someone on politics. Because you think that if you vote Republican, it's not just for Donald Trump, because many Republicans want to do the same thing. You vote for them, somehow they're bad, they're going to break education. You, lady, you're the one who ruined education. You're the one who ruined it for people's kids. You think you're some sort of special music teacher. You think you got some special gift to teach kids. No, you and your ilk, you ruined it. Public school in this country, they're failing. There are some good ones and there are some great teachers. But you know what the great teachers don't do? The great teachers don't get on social media and blast parents for voting for someone you disagree with. I wonder what's going to happen to these people. My suspicion is absolutely nothing. But what they're doing is they're going to continue to be privileged and entitled, and they're going to sow distrust. But there's a larger issue here, too. I want you all to listen to me. The education that these kids are getting from this music teacher, it's not free. We, the taxpayers, pay for it. Like the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., these teachers work for us. We do not work for them. If they do not like how their bosses, that is the taxpayers, voted, they can quit and get a different job instead of complaining that they don't like the way their bosses voted, because these parents are their employers through their property taxes. And this entitled mentality that somehow they know best, they've given themselves some power through credentialism, but the real credentials are from the parents who own the property, who pay the property taxes, pay their salaries. And if they don't like it, they can quit. They can quit. The parents who voted for Trump are their bosses, whether they like it or not. Hello there and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Let's go to the phone. Sherry, you're up next. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So you actually just drilled home on the point that I called about where you said that nut job music teacher said it's a free education. And like you said, our property taxes pay for that. You know, I work for a private employer, and I have to be extremely careful about what I put out on social media. And, you know, it's different. Like you said, we are their bosses. We're paying their salaries. We're paying for that education. And I think there should be a policy, just like we have at private employers, about if you put something out on social media, you know, it better be anonymous, because this person can obviously be linked with the school. There should be a no, you know, like you can't go out on social media and post stuff like this.
Well, you know, I got to say, I see it a little different in that I'm actually glad that they did it. I'm glad that it's that person, and I'm glad that they're willing to put their face and name to it so we know who they are. And it is them. But you're right. It is a level of brazenness that they can be comfortable doing something like that and knowing there will be no repercussions for them in doing it. Rarely are there repercussions for them. It's remarkable to me that they are that gutsy to be able to do it, and they absolutely know that many of their fellow teachers are going to pat them on the back for saying, "Oh, you're so brave to say what we all think." And what do they think? That they hate parents who disagree with them. They hate parents who disagree with them. They hate their bosses, because the parents are the bosses. They're not customers, and that's part of the reason the education system is broken, is because we have converted the employers into customers. That's why public education is such a bad deal, because the employers are the tax-paying families, and they also are the customers, and that relationship should not exist. We should actually, frankly, abolish public schools and just give parents the money to go to whichever school system they want to go to, private or homeschool, charter, you name it. That's what we should be doing. We never will, but we should. The public school systems fundamentally are broken institutions, need to be realigned and reprioritized. Now, you need to deal with the air in your home. You can go to the EdenPureDeals.com website and get an Eden Pure Oxyleaf Thunderstorm. Fancy word for a brilliant product. All you do, go to EdenPureDeals.com, put in Eric3, ERICK3, and you can get 3 of them for less than $200, and you save $200. And the new ones, they don't just wipe out any odor, they also wipe out 99.9% of bacteria and viruses floating in the air. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm, it's an air purifier. So it gets rid of pet dander, it gets rid of pollen, it gets rid of dust, but it also gets rid of any odor. Any odor. They're small enough as well. You can keep them in your travel bag. I kept one in my travel bag, but I was at such a hoity-toity fancy place this weekend, I didn't need it. It was fantastic. The Cloisters is fantastic. Also, like very, very, very like why hoity-toity. Nonetheless, EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code ERICK3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, let me go to Steve calling from Jacksonville, Florida. Steve, welcome to the Eric Erickson Show. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, Eric, and how are you today?
I'm great.
Good. I understand that we are continuing these ghost flights, bringing illegals in from various countries. What needs to be done to stop this program and get it canceled? Because obviously if we're paying for them to come in, we're going to pay for them to get deported too.
Yeah, Steve, it's going to take the election and Donald Trump coming back in. The Biden administration seems very committed to continuing, if not escalating. And I got to say, I got an idea here. So I want everybody to hear me out. If you haven't heard, and to Steve's point, the Biden administration has continued to fly illegal immigrants into the United States. Even after the election, they've done it. If anything, they're escalating it to get as many in as possible before Trump comes in. My theory on that is they want the visuals of mass deportations to overwhelm people's consciences and try to convince people it's a bad thing that Trump's deporting. Look at this mass sea of humanity in detention centers waiting to be deported. They're going to use the media to turn it into something. So they want as many here as possible to juice the numbers for the mass deportations, to get a news story out. You know, they're seeding news stories from a very sympathetic press to the Democrats. But I have an idea. You know, the mayor of Denver has said he will go to jail rather than comply with mass deportations of illegal aliens. The mayor of Boston is similarly situated. The governor of New York has said that illegals can stay there. Gavin Newsom has said the whole state of California is going to be a sanctuary state. So let them. Take all of the illegal immigrants and send them to California and Denver and Boston and Chicago. Send them to New York City, overwhelm their infrastructure, overwhelm the resources. Don't give them a penny. Don't give them a penny in federal funding. Send them there and let those states and communities break under the weight of their moral smugness. I think that's what you got to do. I think that needs to be done. The only way these states and cities in their moral smugness, their morally superior complex, the only way they're going to understand the effects of illegal immigration in this capacity, in this way, is to overwhelm them. So while we're waiting to do mass deportations, send all the illegal immigrants to those places. They can have the crime. They can have the stress on the social services. They can have it all. They can have it all. Let them deal with it. Why not? They say they want them. Let them. Let them take it. Let them understand what other states and communities have gone through. Speaking of moral smugness, Speaker Mike Johnson has a tweet that is worth sharing with you. He's highlighting the Ways and Means Democrats. The Democrats on the Ways and Means Committee. The Ways and Means Committee is the taxing committee. There's a USA Today report. The headline: shoppers spent a record $10.8 billion online on Black Friday. Up next, Cyber Monday. And some left-wing website quoted that article with record air travel, holiday shopping, busting records, stock market at all-time highs. The economy is, quote-unquote, the worst ever, some Pollyanna's whine. And the Ways and Means Committee Democrats, they tweeted, and here we were thinking y'all couldn't afford eggs. The Democrats see this headline, shoppers spent a record $10.8 billion online on Black Friday, and their response, and here we were thinking y'all couldn't afford eggs. They deleted the tweet. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson got a screenshot of their tweet. And he notes, Democrats deleted this tweet. Americans have been struggling for 4 years to afford basic necessities, and House Democrats are mocking them. Talk about your all-time out-of-touch, disgraceful comments. The House Republicans will deliver for hardworking Americans. It actually is amazing that they thought it was good. Here's part of the problem. Is the Republicans as well, but the Democrats have allowed a bunch of woke progressive 20-somethings to run their social media accounts, and they are deeply out of touch with most American people. Deeply out of touch with most American people. It's part of the problem of the Democratic Party. And again, it is upper level Democratic strategists themselves who will say privately, part of the problem is the Democrats are overwhelmed with very wealthy gay men and neurotic white women. That is a reflection of the Democratic Party. But at the activist level, they've let a bunch of very woke 20-somethings be in charge. James Carville said no one cares about what a 20-something-year-old woke Democrat thinks, and it's true. And so many of these white woke kids in the Democratic Party are helping direct not just public policy, but communications for the Democrats. And it's collapsing on them. Take, for example, MSNBC. Of course, this is from Fox News. It's hilarious, though. On November 26th, MSNBC had the lowest rated non-holiday weekday among the advertising coveted demographic of adults aged 25 to 54 in 20 years. MSNBC managed only 38,000 average demo viewers, its smallest non-holiday audience among the critical viewers since July 19th, 2004. So for those of you who don't know, and that's most of you, advertisers like, they call it the demo, 25 to 54. Ratings in TV and radio are based on viewers 25 to 54. Why? Because the advertisers love them. It's actually the 35 to 64-year-olds who have the most money to spend, but advertisers believe that if you start locking someone into a brand at 25, they're going to shop that brand for the rest of their lives. So advertisers really are interested in the 25 to 34 segment because they want to lock them into brands. So that's where they go for money. And then 25 to 54 overall, that's the core engaged in the marketplace, in the workforce consumer, 25 to 54. That's what advertisers covet. Your ratings and your the amount of money you can sell for an ad is really oftentimes based on the 25 to 54-year-old demographic. And only 38,000 of them were watching MSNBC. For perspective, I am on less than 50 radio stations right now in this country. I want to be to 600 or 700. Right now I'm at 50. And I have more people listening to me in that demographic than MSNBC had viewers. On a daily basis, MSNBC has fewer people in the demo watching than I have listening to me on the radio. It's insane. This network has completely collapsed. And why is this network collapsed? Because they have lied to their viewers. They've told them what they've wanted to hear for so long, and now the viewers realize that they've been lied to. So here's the thing. When you eat sugar all the time, not only do you get diabetes, do you put on weight and your teeth rot, but ultimately you realize it's a bad thing. And more so than Fox News, MSNBC has steadily fed its viewers a diet of sugar. They've told them what they wanted to hear about Trump. They've told them what they wanted to hear about Joe Biden. They told them what they wanted to hear about Kamala Harris. Forever and ever, they defended Joe Biden as morally superior. He rejected the Hunter Biden pardon, yada, yada, yada. Turns out, nope, he's just lied to us the whole time. And consequently, MSNBC lied. They've lied to their viewers. On election night, they went out of their way not to tell their viewers what was actually happening in America because they didn't want to call the race for Donald Trump. Listen, I've mentioned this before. I'll leave it alone after this, but let me reiterate this one more time. I lost a station I liked very much. It was a big station because I was not pro-Trump enough. But I'm willing to lose the station because I'm not willing to lie to you and tell you what you want to hear. And I may be wrong, but I'm not going to tell you something I don't believe is true. And very often I'm right. And when I'm wrong, I try to acknowledge it. I'm not willing to be a radio show host or someone on television who just wants to tell you what you want to hear. I want to tell you as best I can figuring out what the truth is. And if that costs me a radio station because I'm not pro-Trump enough, that's fine with me. I want all the radio stations, but I'm not willing to do it in a way that costs me your trust. And MSNBC has lost the trust of its viewers because so many viewers on the left went into Election Day believing there was no possible way Donald Trump could win because the voices on MSNBC told him as such. And the voices on MSNBC epistemically told them, insisted, informed them that he was a threat to democracy. And if he won, America was over. And then what happens? The most popular show on MSNBC, they announced, we've gone to see Trump. We decided to begin a conversation with him. Morning Joe. And I like Joe. I like Mika. But you spend 4 years telling people it's a dark day if Donald Trump gets elected. It's the end of the democracy. He'll be a dictator. He'll be an autocrat. They say, hey, we went to go have a conversation with him. It's time to start talking to him again. You get Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes and the like on there to tell them that Joe Biden is a man of integrity. Joe Biden is honest. Joe Biden is truthful. Joe Biden stands up for the system and the integrity of the Constitution. Then he pardons his son. And they're like, well, of course he did. He had to. No. You said he was a man of integrity. You said he supported the system. And now you're telling me that Joe Biden's on Department of Justice is prosecuting innocent people, is persecuting the president's son, the Justice Department that Joe Biden controls. It's too ludicrous to be believed, except by the most deranged music teachers in America who lecture people on TikTok. Nobody else believes it anymore. Their credibility is shot. So, of course, their ratings are in the tank. Their viewers may not come back. Now, here's the other thing, truthfully. After an election is over, a lot of people walk away for a time and they come back. A lot of people do. After Joe Biden lost in 2020, big headlines were the decline of Fox News and the rise of Newsmax. Newsmax has declined again. Fox has gone back up. Happens every election cycle. Happens in talk radio as well. Whether you win or you lose, ratings drop after the election. People tune back out. They're like, okay, I can go back to something else now. And then eventually they start to trickle back in, slowly, building up to the next election. It'll happen with MSNBC as well. But there are not a lot of MSNBC viewers right now. There are more than 38,000, but advertisers only care about 25 to 54. And on November 26, there were only 38,000 of them. Now, again, part of that, too, is the time of year. The 26th was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. A lot of people were checking out of work. A lot of people were out of school. A lot of people were traveling. So you got to have that context, too. But it's still a terrible sign that 38,000 demo viewers, it's the least they've had since July 19th, 2004. So the November 26th of last year and the year before had more viewers. The collapse after the election is notable for MSNBC because it's happening more to them than even CNN or any other network because they've lied for so long to their viewers, and now the viewers realize they've been played. That's what happens when your network smugly calls out Fox News, but is actually even more partisan and less news-oriented than Fox. And it's why Comcast is now going to sell them, maybe to Elon Musk. Y'all, I want you to buy into Old Glory Bank. I am such a big fan of the bank. I love them so much, I've actually now invested in the bank. I think they're a great bank for conservatives. There are debanking trends across this country. In fact, Mark Andreessen, the venture capitalist, had a long thread the other day about people who have had their banks reach out to them and just say, we're closing your account. It's happened to apparently Barron Trump and Melania Trump and others. Banks just saying, we don't want to do business with you anymore. And a lot of it is led by progressives who buy shares in banks in order to control them. They want to get rid of people who are gun store owners. They want to get rid of conservatives. That's never going to happen with Old Glory Bank. You're going to be safe. Why? Because they're a bank by conservatives for conservatives. They were started by conservatives like John Rich, Larry Elder, Ben Carson, others you would know, because they understood what the left was beginning to do. I have referred businesses to them. I have my personal checking account with them. I got my personal savings account with them. You can get a custodial account for your kid. You can even deposit cash at this bank, even though it's an online bank. It's a great bank. They're good people. They do mortgages. They do car loans. They do business loans. They do it all for you or for your business. I've referred, again, multiple businesses to them to have their bank accounts with them, and all of them have sung their praises. Don't take my word for it. Try them out yourself. You can get an account online. Takes less than 8 minutes. You go to oldglorybank.com. 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 Member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. Well, it looks like the South Korean president is on the verge of impeachment now. Major protests erupting in South Korea. Protesters have stormed the National Assembly after the president declared emergency martial law. South Korean police clashed with protesters blocking entry. The president, Yoon Suk-yeol, made a declaration, a late-night TV address, claiming he would eradicate shameless pro-North Korean anti-state forces. He didn't cite any specific threat from the North. Instead, focused on his domestic political opponents, declaring martial law to protect the Free Republic of Korea from the threat of North Korean communist forces, to eradicate the despicable pro-North Korean anti-state forces that are plundering the freedom and happiness of our people, and to protect the free constitutional order. His polling has collapsed. Now, there's been a call for independent probes into he and his wife. North Korea, let me just give you this list. This is from Next TV. The first president of North Korea was overthrown. The second president of South Korea. First president of South Korea was overthrown. The second president of South Korea was overthrown. The third president was assassinated. The fourth was removed by military coup. The fifth was sentenced to death after his presidency. The sixth was sentenced to 22 years in prison after his presidency. The seventh was imprisoned during the term of the president. As president, he secured convictions against two of his predecessors. He had been imprisoned by the third president. The eighth president had been imprisoned under the third president's regime and sentenced to death under the fifth president's regime until pardoned and won the Nobel Prize. The ninth president was impeached and investigated for corruption and committed suicide. The 10th president was arrested for corruption after his presidency and sentenced to 15 years in prison. The 11th was impeached and arrested for corruption and sentenced 24 years in prison. The 12th was a recent president. He's managed to keep himself out of jail, and now the 13th is probably going to be impeached. Wow. They're the least competent of the Koreas. I mean, I tell you, the best run Korea is West Korea out there in Bryan County, Georgia, with massive Hyundai plant. My goodness, I was kind of amused everybody referring to it as West Korea. I learned when I was on the coast this weekend. Nonetheless, South Korea not having a normal day, wild times on the Korean Peninsula, and that doesn't even count what's going on in North Korea. Talk to you guys tomorrow.